The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back. Giants baseball, past, present, future. I'm Ralph Tyko of the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and the host of the show is Michael Duca, who is present and accounted for. Hello, Michael.
How are you, Ralph?
I can't complain. This is a kind of a big day for me. This evening, my network is producing a show for Sports Byline USA, and it's called Comfortably Zoned in a Vat of Pine Tar. And it will feature Lenny Randall as one of the co-hosts, myself, and a fellow by the name of Fred Wallen will be co-hosting. And basically the show will be a compilation of all the shows we have on the Zone Radio Network. We're going to have the same contributors, yourself, Jerry Feidelberg. We're going to have an umpire's corner with Al Clark. We're going to have a feature called Golenbach University with Peter Golenbach and Alan Blumkin, two of the all-time baseball mavens in the world. We're going to have an author's corner, which, Michael, you'll be invited to join. It'll be hosted by Ian Kahanowitz, and it will be made up of all the podcasters on Comfortably Zoned who are authors. You are, Mark Littell is, Skip Lockwood, David Nemec. Just off the top of my head, Bill Costadis is an accomplished author, and we're going to find out what it takes to write books, what authors think, and it's going to be a terrific feature. We have a collectible, baseball card collectible feature, just baseball cards, all baseball memorabilia, and we will have dealers and experts as guests. We're going to have a Hall of Fame corner with Gabriel Schechter, an esteemed writer for the Hall of Fame, and looking forward to that. That's going to be exciting. Again, Mark Littell and Skip Lockwood are both former Major League closers and accomplished authors themselves, and they're going to have a segment called Closer's Corner. So I've been producing this for quite some time, and it debuts tonight, 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 o'clock in the morning Eastern. It's an hour show, Sports Byline USA, and I'm very excited. So that's my spiel for today, Mr. Duca. What say you?
Well, I'm looking forward to working with Jerry on what's going on inside the press box.
Yeah, that's very exciting for me. Hope to get Ken Korak. We don't have final say on that, but I'd like him to be a contributor as well, and it'll give the listeners a chance to hear the things that I've been hearing from you guys all this time about what goes on in the press box. You yourself, you're an official scorer, a journalist, an author, and it's going to be fun. That segment is one that really appeals to me because who out there as a listener didn't get everything they got early on as a fan from broadcasting, either telecasting or radio. That's what made us fans initially. So I know with my case, I spent hours and hours with the transistor under my pillow when I should have been sleeping and getting ready for school the next day. I'd be listening to ball games on the West Coast from New York, and it didn't matter that it was 1 in the morning and that I was getting 45 in Spanish on my report card. And it didn't seem to matter because I would end up with 20 by the end of the semester, and I knew it. So not much I could do about it at the time. Michael, let's stop my rambling and let's get off into Giantville a little bit. We're feeling the brunt of losing all the pitching. Am I correct? Is that the best way of looking at it?
Well, I mean, you're only missing one of the 5 best pitchers in baseball and one of the probably 2 best pitchers in baseball this year and the most successful closer of the last 5 years. Other than that, no problem.
Mrs. Lincoln, how is the play other than that? Things are going quite well? One less egg to cook? That type of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But we're not coming back from this, but yet we seem to have been treading water. Longoria seems to be coming around a little bit as I see it. Brandon Belt is turning into one of the most disciplined hitters in baseball. His 21 pitch plate appearance notwithstanding, he's like that all the time. He just will not swing if the ball's not right over the plate.
That's true, and perhaps that selectiveness was a little expensive yesterday because Doug Eddings, who is known amongst fans and broadcasters and players alike as being an umpire who looks for strikes, and I personally have no problem with umpires who look for strikes. He found one yesterday to end the game that Brandon significantly disagreed with.
He barked. He was very, very upset, and it just with 2 strikes, you just can't be. You can't be taking everything. You can be disciplined, but that's carrying it a little to the extreme, one way or the other. I thought, looking back on the pitch, that he had a good case. But as you
said, he may well have, as
strikes.
You said, and he had plenty of time to prosecute that case because he had nothing but free time remaining the rest of the day. It's just one of those things. This is baseball. It would be, I know that players get upset when an umpire's strike zone is not consistent throughout the day. In other words, if you're given a pitch, at the letters in the first inning, then you got to give that pitch at the letters in the 9th inning also. Other than that, if it's your 4th at bat of the day or your 5th at bat of the day with a particular umpire behind the plate, you have a pretty fair idea of what he's thinking about. And let's face it, even the best hitters strike out. Even the best hitters take called third strikes. Sometimes you get fooled. Sometimes a pitch is better than you thought it was. And sometimes you just can't pull the trigger even though you know it was a strike.
That's right. For one reason or another, you just you can't follow through on it. I have a question for you, a little off this topic, but the Giants are famous for bringing back folks like Felipe Alou, now Dusty Baker, filling their front office with advisors. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Willie McCovey is still listed as an advisor. Mays at this, of course, emeritus, all of that. Are there any of those guys, and I may be leaving out 2 or 3, I'm sure I am, who actually make a difference and have the power that be's ear, if you will, along the way?
Well, I think that there's a lot of benefit to having that collected wisdom available to you. I know that on the rare occasions that I've been able to duck into the clubhouse during spring training, if Willie Mays is sitting at a table, there are 3 or 4 other outfielders sitting at the table with him. And they are literally sponging whatever they can learn, whatever they can acquire. I remember distinctly, Ralph, maybe 20 years ago, sitting and watching a 49er game with my son and telling him, you're too young to understand what this means right now at 13 or 14, but I at least want you to be able to look back someday and remember that I told you how rare it is, how unique in all of your existence it is to be watching the best ever at anything and know it when you're watching it. That's how I felt when I watched Willie Mays play, how I felt when I watched Jerry Rice play, and we were talking about Jerry Rice at the time. There's just no substitute for the acquired wisdom and knowledge of these guys who have 50, 60 years in the game.
No question. No question. The players should be eating up the wisdom and the teachings and of these guys. I'm just curious if they have an effect on player personnel. Do they make recommendations? Do they see things in different players? Are they known as being? I know back in the day, Carl Hubble was big in the system, and as a former player, he actually did make decisions and on signings and what have you. I'm just wondering if these big names, and it's great to know that the Giants take care of them of their own. I just wonder if it's.
I honestly don't know how much influence they may have on the selection or development of current players. I think that probably varies from one to the next. In the case of Mays and Covey, they're probably both too advanced in age to be able to go out and scout or to be able to go out and evaluate any kind of talent. I think they may have observations that are of value to the players at the time, and they may have knowledge to share with them that is new that could qualify as developmental. But I don't think they have any formal roles in those ways. I don't know.
Okay. How's speaking of Giant icons who, in this case, has been really ill? How is Orlando Cepeda coming along?
Well, what I'm hearing, Orlando is in a rehab facility in East Bay, and I'm told he's doing very well. The last person that I talked to who saw him was Dusty Baker, and that was about 10 or 12 days ago now. And Dusty seemed very encouraged by what he saw.
Beautiful. That's excellent news. Good deal. What's coming up this weekend that might stand out to you as interesting in the world of the Giants?
Well, immediately you have the battle for second place.
Okay.
The Rockies are in town for 4. They always play the Giants well, and they always play the Giants tough at home. And it will be interesting to see how things roll out here, because the Rockies are the one and only team in the National League West that really has been badly bitten by the disabled list.
Right. Right. Speaking of a team that has, that's the Dodgers. Now, how do you explain, other than the DL, because there have been some healthy slumpers as well, their demise?
Well, again, all I can do is offer an opinion here, and my opinion is that it seemed like last year a lot of players had what should have been career years. We don't know for sure because players like Chris Taylor and even a player like John Turner may still be on the upside of their developmental curve, and maybe those weren't career years. But it sure is beginning to look like it was for some players. It looks like Cody Bellinger is going through a little bit of a sophomore slump as the league has adjusted to him. The loss of Corey Seager is huge for that team. They've also had some injuries on the pitching staff, but generally speaking, I think they're also finding out that when you play until November, you don't have much of an off season.
Very good point. That's what makes any dynasty all the more hard to put together in today's day and age.
Yeah, and if you look at the closest thing we've had to a dynasty in the last dozen years or so, there's a Giants run of 3 and 5 years, and it was every other year. And I think that there's a great deal to be said for the fact that having a full off season both gave them a little more inspiration, and also I think gave them a little more spring in their legs, a little more pep in their step, however you want to put it. Like extra month of games requires more recovery time than you actually wind up having, because when you win a World Series, or even if you just win a league championship, you get more popular in the off season. You will have more shopping center openings or charity events or whatever. You just, your time is more occupied and you have less opportunity to go out there and just rest up and get yourself in shape for the next year.
Yeah. In our day, they used to call them banquets. The players would go to banquets in the winter if they won big. And, they'd come into spring training out of shape and what have you. Nowadays, that isn't an issue. I think players stay in shape 350 days a year. They don't come to spring training to get in shape, with rare exceptions.
That's absolutely true.
So, in any event, what are you most disappointed in, and what are you most happy about with the Giants season this year? First, disappointment. Injuries notwithstanding, I'll make it a little more difficult for you.
Oh, you just made it a lot more difficult. There's not much to be disappointed about. If you take away the injuries to Mac Williamson and Joe Panik and Madison Bumgarner and Johnny Cueto and Mark Melancon and Jeff Samardzija, what's there to be disappointed about? The team's above 500, missing the vast majority of its starting rotation, an important piece in the bullpen, half its infield, and its highest rated power hitter.
Right. Okay. What are you most surprised and delighted about?
Tony Watson. Every time Tony Watson rolls out of that bullpen, I think to myself, how on earth did the Dodgers let this guy go?
Okay.
He's absolutely on point whenever he goes out there. He's a bad outing that I can recall. And every reliever is going to have a bad outing from time to time. Even
Strickland's doing good as the closer. Am I correct?
Strickland is doing very well as a closer, I think. he makes quality pitches. Sometimes they're a little too straight, but that's the thing that's going to happen too when you are expanding your repertoire at the major league level. Strickland has had a slider for the last year or so, but now he's using it, as an opening gambit in an at-bat. He'll throw the slider in there to try and steal a strike early on because his reputation is that he's all high heat. And once in a while, you'll get a hitter who will guess with you. And, that may start an at-bat or an inning off very poorly, but, by and large, he's doing pretty well. The average across baseball, I'm going to get the number wrong, but I believe it's 94 or 95% of all games in which a team carries a lead into the ninth inning, that team wins, regardless of who's closing. So if you're doing better than that, then you have a better than average closer. But the bottom line is, he didn't come into the season expecting that to be his job, and I think he's done a pretty good job of mentally adjusting to it. And that gives the Giants the ability to ease Melanson back into the closer role, knowing that they have a skilled fallback.
How far away is he from coming back?
Melanson, I think, is going to face this weekend and maybe going out as early as next week.
Oh, that's very good news. Very good news. And if they're, we said at the beginning of the year when the injury started, if they could tread water and stay at 500 till they get guys back, and the way things go, it's only been 40 games. Is 1/3 of the season is all.
1/4 of the season. 1/4 of the season.
Well, I'm sorry. It's been 40 games.
Yeah, 40 games in 1/4 of the
That's
season.
right. There's a quarter of the season, not a third. You're right. Absolutely.
But, maybe you were thinking in Spanish there.
Well, math has never been my long suit. You're the official scorer. My God, you must have been good at math. You must have been attentive when, as a kid.
I did all right. I took 6 or 7 years of math in high school. I can't remember which.
Okay. Did you ever think when you were a kid that, that would be a great job, sit in the press box, do that job? Did that ever cross your mind?
Absolutely. I wanted to be a broadcaster.
Really? Oh, right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I can tell the story of when I asked my father my father asked me, what do you want to do? And I told him I wanted to be the broadcaster of the Yankees. And he told me that was nonsense. Do you know how many people want to be the announcer of the Yankees? You've got to find something with a future and blah, blah, blah. And he was only 49% responsible for killing my dream at the time. Because I had to take the 51%. And it worked, but looking back, I realized what he was saying was for my best interest because of the times he grew up in. But on the other hand, when I had my child, I decided not to kill his dream, whatever it was going to be. And so if you're listening out there, you got to be very careful with your kid. My father should have said, yeah, there's a lot of people that want to be announcers, but what can we do so you can be one? Let's look at Syracuse, for instance. But there you go. And who was that announcer that you emulated when you wanted to be an announcer?
Well, I've often said, growing up as a kid in Sacramento, we we played baseball from dawn till dark, and everybody wanted to be Willie Mays except me. I wanted to be Lon Simmons.
But I knew I didn't have a chance to be story at Safeway in Alameda. I walked up to him and I wanted to go, oh my God, Lon Simmons! I couldn't even get words out. That's how great Lon Simmons was. If you were going to pick an announcer to emulate, wow, nice choice.
Well, he had those stentorian tones, Ralph.
Those pipes that even, he did say hello to me. Oh, hello, that's very nice of you. And I go, oh, okay, Mr. Simmons. That's great. Yes. And that way of making it conversational and enjoyable, not talking down to the fan. I think that is what many of the Giants' former announcers and present announcers are famous for. Hank Greenwald was every bit that. He just talked, and you felt like you were talking to your next door neighbor.
Well, Hank might be the best storyteller of them all. I mean, I know it's tough to top Vin Scully, but Vinny was always willing to tell you a story of human interest. Hank would tell you a story that had a punchline.
Yeah. I may have asked you this before. When Hank was announcing, there was a season that he and Willie would do a pregame show, and I wonder if those tapes are still available or archived somewhere. He got the most out of Willie Mays that any announcer or broadcaster in my memory, and I've followed this gentleman for a long time. So I've asked you that before. I know you're a friend of Hank's son, who's an announcer was with Phoenix for a long time as a AAA announcer.
Well, Doug was with Fresno, and he's still with Fresno. It's just that the parent club has switched from being the Giants to being the Astros. So it's been a little bit of an adjustment for Doug, but I don't recall that year. That may have been a period before I lived in the Bay Area, because for whatever reason, I remember Dwayne Kuiper having a show. I remember Joe Morgan having a show. But I don't recall the show with Willie. And that doesn't mean I didn't hear it. It just means that, I'm almost as old as Willie, and my memory's probably about as bad as his, too.
Well, when you talk to Doug next, ask him if you remember, if he wouldn't ask his dad if those tapes are available or if maybe they're at KNBR. I don't know who gets the domain of those things. Sometimes it changes hands over the years.
Well, and it also depends. KNBR has been bought and sold multiple times. It was an NBC outlet when the Giants were first on it, and then it went to Susquehanna False-Graph, Susquehanna Broadcasting, and now it's Cumulus, I think, as are most radio stations in the country. There's only a couple of people or entities that own almost all the broadcast radio outlets now, and I guess Cumulus is now iHeartRadio. So I will certainly ask about that. One of the things that happens is that how things are broadcast and how those broadcasts are produced and owned changes over time. For a while, Franklin Muley produced the Giants broadcasts on KSFO and on KNBR, and For all I
think
know,
he was the one that originally put Lon to get together in that crew.
I think you're right, and so I don't know. I mean, Franklin's entity may own the rights to those tapes, or the sponsor may own the rights to those tapes. It just depends on how things were structured at the time. We were neither privy to that, nor did we much care. All we cared about was making sure that when we turned the radio on at the right time of day, we got exactly what we needed, which was our baseball fix.
Right. Or the tapes may be in Hank's basement somewhere and should not be forgotten. So maybe Doug can help, maybe not, but it's certainly worth asking, because I remember it as one of the most interesting pregame shows, and it went on every day. He talked to him before the game, and Willie could be.
Was Willie still playing at the time?
No, he wasn't.
Okay.
God, I wish I could. It had to be the 80s, but the late 80s.
Well, remember, there was a span of time when Willie served as a spokesperson for a casino in New Jersey and was not allowed to participate in baseball.
That was a Bowie Kuhn, the village idiot, went to work and takes Mickey Mantle, who had a part-time job as not a part-time job, but he was a first base coach with the Yankees, and Willie Mays was doing his thing with the Mets, and it wasn't good enough because they had taken jobs as greeters in Atlantic City, or it might have been Vegas, but it seemed.
No, I think it was Atlantic City.
Okay, and he suspends them, does Kuhn. These would have been the two best ambassadors of baseball in the history of baseball, and he just suspends them because he's a greeter. They're greeters at. That was a horribly stupid decision. Turns out Kuhn's in the Hall of Fame, and who knows?
And so are Mickey and Willie.
Yes, that's true. That's true. But more people go to see Mickey and Willie than Kuhn. Happily.
Well, that may well be true. What I do know is that Mickey and Willie both were reinstated into baseball eventually, and so if it was a wrong that was done, it was corrected.
Yes, it's always best. But you think about why, what would evoke something like that, and especially because many of the owners are into horse racing and gambling in one sort or another. And as a matter of fact, while we're at it, now that I have an expert on the air, there was a decision that came down on gambling this past week, gambling in Major League Baseball. And can you fill us in on that a little bit, and what the issue was and how the decision is going to affect what's going on right now?
Well, I can do a few things. One of them is there was not really a decision on gambling in baseball. There was a decision on the constitutionality of a law passed in 1992 that grandfathered in sports betting in those states that already had it, but prohibited it in the other 46 states. And what the Supreme Court said was, you can't do that. You can prohibit gambling nationwide, you can allow gambling nationwide, or you can allow states to make their own decisions, but you can't favor some states and not others. So the outcome of this is likely to be that the states that had sports books already, or off-track betting sites or whatever, will be able to move into these arenas rather quickly. The other states, it's going to be up to them. And they all move into it at their own risk because Congress could just up and decide, no, we'd rather not have gambling on sports at all anywhere and shut it down. Is that likely? I don't think it is, but it's possible. Gambling on sports is estimated to be a $150 billion a year business in the United States. Legal gambling on sports is estimated to be a $10 to $12 billion activity in the United States, which means that somewhere in the vicinity of 92% of it is illegal gambling with your local bookmaker, or offshore, or online, or any one of a number of other ways that you can probably find to do this. You know, office pools, whatever you want to call them.
Fantasy baseball, is that not gambling on some level?
Well, only if something is at stake. I mean, as an employee of the commissioner's office and an employee of MLB Advanced Media, I have extremely strict restrictions. I cannot participate in any fantasy league that offers any kind of prize at all, not even a trophy, nothing.
Okay.
I can participate in fantasy leagues that are strictly for fun. They have no entry fee. They have no prize pool. Bragging rights are not yet against the rules of Major League Baseball.
Okay. Well, Yahoo has
and I'd like
several...
to brag that my fantasy baseball team probably has the most talented disabled list in all of America, because it currently contains DJ LeMahieu and Mac Williamson and Madison Bumgarner and Clayton Kershaw and Johnny Cueto.
Whoa. That's
and I have a pending trade offer. I've been offered the opportunity to fill out that deal with Corey Seager.
That's a very fine offer. What a gentleman that was to offer you that.
Actually, it's not a bad offer. I've been offered Seager plus 3 pretty decent players for Didi Gregorius.
Who's not really gone downhill in the last few weeks, batting wise.
And that's probably why I'm going to.
When to see? Is it a keeper league or is it just one?
Yes.
One? Okay, so that might not be a bad move at all. If you've got all those guys on the DL, your season is pretty much toast. That's how.
Oh yeah. I'm riding hard in 9th place in an 11-team league.
11-team league, not 12.
You have as many members as you have.
Oh, okay. Interesting. And so at the end of the year, do you have open teams that you fill out with new players?
We have had 2 owners turnover in the last 9 years. We're a pretty stable league made up of either people who are currently in the press box or people who were in the press box for the most part.
Good. That makes it fun, too. And that's where bragging rights come in. Unless any of you out there, if you haven't had the pleasure of owning, well, the mixed pleasure sometimes, depending on which of your pitchers are not pitching. But it is a hell of a lot of fun, and you get to say, what if I was a GM? How does a GM think? The nice part is you can make up for your mistakes. With an 11-team league, there are a bunch of new guys on the free agent wire all the time, guys coming in, rookies, and you could remain interested all year. And
well, there are. I'm surprised you did not ask me the critical question, which is how the hell did I manage to get Kershaw and Bumgarner? And the answer is I drafted both of them when they were in the minor leagues and used up a roster spot all year holding and waiting for them.
Well, that's a move of foresight. I drafted Danny Peralta. He came into the league a few days ago with, I think it's Milwaukee, pitched a great game, had a, just looks like a great kid. I drafted him, and sure enough, I was so down on the draft priority, I got him. Nobody jumped in on my league, which leads me to believe that they're asleep, but brings new hope to between now and the end of the season for me, because I was the guy that drafted Harvey when he was doing so well in spring training and cut Sean Manaea, like a roster
Enough
spot.
said.
Oh, yeah. But the sad part is I've done much worse over the years. Some things I've done over the years that were bad, I blank on now. I can't even think. I've blanked them out of my head. It's like a bad first marriage. You just don't. You don't think about it for the rest of your life. It goes in a little compartment somewhere. So.
Well, one of the frustrations of being in a keeper league is that you can only keep a few players, and therefore you can look back. I think everyone in the league can probably look back at guys that they drafted and didn't hold on to.
Oh,
in my case, those names include Miguel Cabrera, Justin Verlander. I mean, yeah, it gets terrifying if I go back and go through the entire list, because what I seem to be perfectly great at is picking out the pitchers who are going to be good 2 years down the road. For instance, I was the first guy in our league to draft Sean Manaea. Don't have him now, but I knew him before anyone else did.
Right. And you have
that and a dollar will get you a USA Today.
Well, I brought Hunter Pence into a league that I was in when he was called up from the minors with Houston years ago now, it seems.
Mm-hmm.
My God, time passes very quickly. I think I brought Ryan Braun into the league. You make guesses that work or don't work, and mine is not a keeper league. So I get the dubious pleasure of starting again from each year, and as does everybody else in a new draft. Not for money. The idea it can be gambling. You can turn something like that into gambling, but you could also just do it for the fun of it. And that's I can see why the league would have strict by Major League Baseball would have strict restrictions on the official scores not being in it. Was that a hit or was that an error? That type of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Hey, Michael, thank you, sir, for another fine conversation. I enjoy your company, and I enjoy learning from you. And if you're up at 1 o'clock Eastern Time, 10 o'clock this evening, I will make sure you get the phone number, the call-in number to Sports Byline, our maiden edition, comfortably zoned in a vat of pine tar with Lenny Randall.
I am working tonight's Giants game, and if it's over before your broadcast wraps up, then I will be able to participate. And if it's not, then I'll have to understand that the game comes first.
Time. But I'd love to hear your voice on the maiden show. That's going to be cool beans for me, I have to tell you. And so I will talk to you next week, I hope.
All right. Talk to you soon, Ralph. Maybe tonight.
If not tonight. Thank you, sir. And if you're out there listening, do us both a favor. Just help society a little bit. Just accumulate some gently used children's books and take them down to the Head Start program. Reasons are obvious. Kids need to read. They need to become school ready. They need to get their heads out of the devices and the games, and they need to develop an imagination, and they got to change the world through the kids. And the kids that are going to be helped with these books are the kids that need it the most. So get them together, get neighborhood programs together, and take the books down to your Head Start program. You will be doing me a solid. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
I'm going to throw one thing in, too, if I can, Ralph.
Sure.
Can I toss one in on my hook?
Would you?
It's right about the time of year when everybody has the opportunity to exercise their franchise and vote in the primaries. And however you want to vote, get out there and don't forfeit your right to participate in our democracy. It's all we've got.
Beautiful words. Thank you, Michael. We'll talk soon. Be
all
well,
right,
everybody,
you,
and catch you next week. Giants, baseball, past, present, future, Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. Michael Duca is the host. I'm Ralph Tyko, the weak link of the entire thing. Everything. I'm the weak link. Adios. Bye.